Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to J Movie Talk. This is episode 369. I am back in full swing, kicking off the month of May with the first May action episode of 2026. If you listen to the throwback episode, I did kind of do a current opener, and I just mentioned a little bit about the fact that I had taken a bit of a hiatus, took a little bit of 2 months basically off. The last actual episode that I did was the Steven Spielberg episode for March. And that was at the very beginning of March, and then I disappeared for a hot minute. But like I said in the opener of the throwback Mortal Kombat episode, basically, sometimes life be lifing, and I moved and I wanted to get myself all settled and everything like that. For a little while, I did have my stuff in storage, so that was a reason why I didn't record, and just getting, everything in order basically before I could get behind the microphone how I wanted to. But now that everything is pretty much settled in, I am back, and fortunately enough, I am getting right in at the beginning of May to kick off MayAction Month on the podcast. And what better way to kick off MayAction Month than to talk about a classic action movie, really? And I'm talking about Enter the Dragon. You've caught that from the opener of the episode. You knew I was going to be doing Enter the Dragon from 1973. And everything like that. But you can expect some really cool movies for this month, because I kind of wanted to not have everything be pretty much similar, even though it is May Action Month. So I'm doing, of course, all action movies this month, but I wanted every movie to be a little different and everything like that. So I wanted to kick it off with something that was very influential and very impactful to the genre, to the action genre, basically. And that's one reason why I wanted to do Enter the Dragon from 1973. I mean, like I said, it has a very rich cultural impact. It was something very different, especially in 1973, and even still relative to today, where your lead actor is, of course, not American, and it's really not a American fused movie, even though you have a few Americans in it, like John Saxon, like Jim Kelly. But Lee, which is, of course, is played by Bruce Lee, you know, he's not your what quote unquote typical action hero of the era. Like, when you really think about action films, especially American action films, you don't think about, someone that's non-American in a sense. But Bruce Lee was a larger than life figure, and this movie really was going to, I feel like, propel him to that next level. But unfortunately, he died, and didn't get to reap the success that this movie brought. And it would have been kind of cool to see what he would have did after this movie, seeing how this movie played out and everything like that. And then also too, the fact that Bruce Lee was the lead of this movie, it gave this movie a global reach. It very much allowed people from around the world to really engross themselves in this type of a movie. And I mean, it's safe to say that Bruce Lee was a once in a generation type figure. I mean, how many people can you say were quite like him at the time that he was around? And not too many people are like him since. I mean, of course, you've had your Jet Li's, your Jackie Chan's to come along after, but there hasn't really been anyone quite like Bruce, and everything like that, which just, I mean, speaks to the greatness of what he was, larger than life type figure, and everything. So let's get into talking about this movie. This movie pretty much still holds up, I feel, even though it is 53 years, actually, this year, because we're in 2026 and this came out 73. So yeah, 50 freaking 3 years ago. So 53 years. I feel like it still holds up. I mean, granted, there are a few things that can feel very much dated in a sense, but as far as the type of movie this is, the type of action movie this is, it is still very much holds up. And I mean, you can talk about the fact that Mortal Kombat, the first movie from 1995, borrowed heavily from Enter the Dragon, and everything. Because you could almost say that Liu Kang, Sonya Blade, and Johnny Cage is pretty much Lee, Roper, and Jim Kelly's character. Pretty much, you could almost say that in a sense, and everything. And Shang Tsung is very much like Han to a degree, and everything. I mean, O'Hara, what is freaking Kano, and Bolo is Goro. Goro. Come on now. I mean, it pretty much tells itself, right? And everything. But yeah, this movie very much was influential to the genre, but also to having a long and rich legacy where movies that came after it, very much still borrows from it, and everything. And I feel like a lot of that plays off of the energy that Bruce Lee brings in this movie. I mean, he does a great job of where he doesn't have to say a lot, but it's just his presence and the aura that he had. Like he could say a lot more with a look than necessarily with dialogue. And I wouldn't say that he was the greatest actor, but he made up a lot for, for the lack of quote unquote his acting with, his presence and just, I mean, he was not a large man, but like I say, he was a larger than life type figure. And in this movie, you get to kind of see what made Bruce Lee really just that much, an icon in a sense, and everything. And even the movie, I mean, looking at it in 1973 eyes, it's a larger than life type of movie. I mean, the set is, it's kind of grand, the arena style with everyone there and everything. And even the scene when they first introduce Roper, coming in with his bags and all this stuff, like everybody just seemed like they were a big deal in different ways, and that's what I really enjoyed about Enter the Dragon, that everyone kind of gets their moments to shine, for the most part in this movie, and everything. But let's talk more about Bruce Lee for a second. So I mean, he was more than just a movie star. I mean, he did train a lot of freaking actors who was getting into karate and stuff like that. And he was like training a lot of these actors, getting into it and stuff like that. And just what he represented, it was a very influential thing. And even now, his legacy still lives on through, his philosophies and, how he carried himself and things of that nature, and everything. And it's funny because, like I said earlier, he's not, from a stature standpoint, he's not a large man, but he carried himself like a big man, kind of to quote like T, I'm 5'9" with the soul of a 6'4", and everything like that. And that's kind of how he carried himself. He was a small stature man, but he carried himself like a bigger person, and everything. And his physical performance, like I said earlier, carries this movie more so than his acting performance. Not saying that he was a crappy actor or anything like that, because he can be funny, and like I say, he can be very stern and serious. But like I say, the physicality, the fight scenes and everything is what really carries him a lot in his movies, and in particular in this movie, and everything. And the character that he plays in this movie feels a lot like how he was in real life to a degree. I want to say, he was very, when it came to his, his style and everything, he was very disciplined. The way he controls his emotions, especially when he fights O'Hara, is like, yeah, I know what you did. I know you killed my sister, and everything. and I'm gonna hurt you. I'm gonna hurt you real bad, which he does. But then O'Hara, of course, has to try to take it too far and wants to, try to actually go at him because he was getting his behind whooped in front of everybody. And I always enjoy that fight scene because when after O'Hara basically he's lost the fight, and even Han is like, O'Hara, like relax, type of thing. And he like, no, you embarrassed me in front of everybody, so I'm gonna break these bottles. And it's like when he breaks those bottles, and the way Bruce Lee turns and looks back, like, oh, so you want to take it there? All right, let's do it. And he does, and just the way he like just takes this man apart, and the fact that last part of that fight scene is in slow motion, and he's still very much in control, even when he kind of loses control and kills O'Hara. He's still in control, and he like for a split second you see the emotion comes through because he's getting vengeance for his sister, but he doesn't fully just let go of his emotions. And that's always something that's kind of stuck with me about the character, and everything. And his screen presence, like I said, he has a presence, he has that aura about him that not a lot of people, just oozes. He's one of those people, like when he's on the screen, you're watching him. Even other people, like the extras and everything in the movie, like you kind of get a glimpse, like they're in awe of him, and everything. And like I said earlier too, like the fact that his career was cut short, um, it just, like I say, it's very unfortunate he didn't get to reap the benefits of the success of this movie. And yeah, like I always kind of wanted to, like, what type of movies would he have done after this? Especially going into the 70s, like what would he have done? Would he have continued on with this type of style of action movie, or would he have kind of transitioned to something different, and everything? It's just one of those what ifs, type of thing. So I do have a question right off the back for you guys, the listeners. Was Bruce Lee the most influential action star ever? And I know ever mean, is of all time basically, but is he the most influential action star of all time? And like I said, you guys can definitely, if you're listening to this on YouTube, you can comment down below. If you are listening pretty much on any podcast catcher, you can comment on it, and everything like that. So that's a question I got for you guys, and everything. So the fight scenes, for the most part, like I said, I talked about Bruce Lee fight scenes, and everything. But let's talk about Roper for a second, because he's clearly like a Johnny Cage type. He was Johnny Cage before Johnny Cage. Oh my God. All right, so let's talk about these fight scenes, in particular, like with Roper, like how his fight scenes are very much different from Williams, and his fight scenes are different from Bruce Lee's. And that's one thing I like about the movies, where they feel real and more organic, and just like, and it's catered to each fighter's style. It's like no one is overtly choreographed, in these fights, because like the whole scam that Roper and Williams got going on, which is kind of hilarious, that they basically hustling this man, and everything. And then even when Roper fights Bolo, and you thinking, oh, Bolo gonna beat the hell out of Roper, but it's like, no, Roper actually can fight. He actually got some skills, even though he pulls up with like his whole entire, luggage and everything, and you thinking like, oh, he's like this, he's this guy that's playing fighter. But it's like, no, Roper can actually fight. He just has a gambling problem, and everything. And it's kind of similar to Johnny Cage. Like Johnny Cage can actually fight. It's just he's looked at it, oh, he's just this B movie action star. He don't really, he ain't really got it like that. But when push come to shove, no, he really do got it like that, and everything. So, and also too, it's like you you get a good sense of each character in their fighting. Like Roper is more of a brawler type. I mean, he doesn't have, would you say, the same type of skill that, of course, Bruce Lee has, or even the skill of what Williams has. But we don't really get to see Williams fight that much. And then the one big fight scene that he do have, he lose because he gets killed by a freaking hand, which always pissed me off. But I mean, it is what it is, right? Um, and each fight, it kind of tells a story. Like I say, the fight between Bruce Lee and O'Hara, that is a personal vendetta that I don't think nobody really knows what is, what's going on there, except for maybe Bruce Lee and O'Hara. I don't even think Han knows to the degree of why this fight is so personal between the two. Because even O'Hara, I mean, even Han is trying to stop O'Hara from like, look, you taking it too far. He even yells out to him, O'Hara, type of thing. And even after O'Hara is killed, he's like, O'Hara disgraced us. It's like, yeah, he screwed up, basically. Like, what was his problem? To a degree. Um, and one thing too is like you don't get a lot of editing in these fight scenes. It's like, okay, we gonna see these dudes like fight, and then it's not like, oh, we gotta cut it here, cut it there, get a close up of this one, and get a close up of that one. It's like, no, we just gonna do it, and we gonna have them fight like it's looking like a real freaking fight. Even when the big brawl, face off at the end between everybody is happening, it's still in a way of where you get to see like the little mini fights in the midst of that, and everything. Uh, it's something that you kind of miss a little bit in action movies or even fight scenes in movies, because everything in like for a while, I mean, they're kind of getting away from it to a degree, but for a while there, it was like everything was super freaking close, and it's like you trying to hide the fact that somebody is not that great of a fighter, so we got to try to hide it as best we can. But I would say that like when the John Wick movies came along, we got back to that. Okay, we're gonna see like all the fight. We're gonna see it from a distance to where you get to see a little bit of everything. And you see people tired in the fights and everything, which it got away from that for a while. Like you got away from seeing people like, no, I'm freaking tired. Like I'm fighting, but I'm tired as hell right now. Type of deal. So let's move on to how this movie kind of blends a few things together in the sense of not only is it a martial arts, you know, movie, and everything, but then you have that spy element because Bruce Lee character is actually going in undercover. He's working for the government to, blow the lid off of this whole hand organization, and the fact that he has like this secret fighting lair on an island somewhere that no one seems to be able to know where it is. But they use him to, be able to uncover this, and then come to find out that they have a woman that's been deep undercover and everything, and she's gonna be his contact. And so it almost has like an element of James Bond to it to a degree. It's almost like, yeah, it's like a action James Bond film, like a karate James Bond film in a sense. And then the whole tournament aspect, which I mean, yeah, you have tournaments from movies and things of that nature, but I don't think there was too many like what we get here. And then, like I said later on, how the movie Mortal Kombat borrows heavily from this freaking movie, and everything. And then the island, how it's a contained little world and everything. They have all these, different vices outside of the tournament, because we get to see like, yeah, there's a part of the island where these women are just pretty much like smoking dope and everything, and they howl off their ass even when Williams come crashing through there when he's fighting hand, and they just laugh and everything because they high as hell on whatever they smoking or whatever. And like, so you have all this stuff going on, and then the whole thing about the women and all that type of deal. It's like, yeah, there's a lot going on this island. Like, what is this? And everything. Um, Another thing too is that the plot of this movie is very simple. It's not convoluted or anything like this. It's very cut and dry, simple, and everything, which actually helps with the pacing of the movie, because the movie is not really that long. I mean, it's like a little over an hour and a half, and it kind of goes by fairly quickly because it's like we kind of get straight to the point with certain things, um, and everything. Which I think now, if this movie was made now, I think there would be a lot of time spent on certain things that probably that just got glossed over in this movie, and everything. And that's one reason why this movie works the way it does, is because it's not overly complex. It's like it's straightforward. Han is the bad guy. Bruce Lee character is going on the cover to expose, his ring that he has. He basically ties up some old vendetta that he has with O'Hara when he found out that he's the one who basically killed his sister. Roper and Williams is, like I say, some hustlers basically, and they kind of get caught up in the midst of what's going on. And like I say, it's a very simple ish, type of story. Um, let's talk about some like these supporting characters too, because I focus a little bit, a lot. Well, I should say I focus a lot on Bruce Lee's character and kind of alluded to the supporting characters to a degree, but let's talk about Han. I mean, the man is basically like a Bond-ish type villain, and the fact that he has, he doesn't have his left hand, and the fact that his name is Han is kind of freaking hilarious. And he has these different attachments, that he can use for that hand, whether it's a fake, just a regular everyday hand. He has that stone hand. He has that claw hand. He has the freaking Vega from Street Fighter hand, and everything is like he got everything. It's like this hand. It's like he has a hand for every situation and occasion that he could think of, basically. Um, and he is a good villain. He's not like we say over the top or anything like that, but he is a good villain, and he's very cunning and conniving as well. And he'll try to charm the hell out of you, but at the same time, he's probably plotting on how many ways he can kill you too. Um, there's a lot of symbolism behind like the characters. Like I say, he presents himself one way, but he's a nasty person behind the scenes, and everything. I mean, the whole thing between William and Roper, like, how did these two link up in the sense of, yeah, we're gonna be like we're gonna partner up, and we're gonna kind of scam our way through this tournament, basically. Even though they are kind of different, but they're very similar in a way. We don't get too much of them, and I should say, we don't get too much of them, and I think that's something that if this movie was made today, that they would probably expand on, like the two of them, to agree, especially Williams, because we don't get a lot of Jim Kelly in this movie, um, and everything. And I mean, John Saxon actually is kind of surprising. Here's like one of the few times throughout his career where he didn't play a freaking cop, and everything. But yeah, I like the fact that they are two different personalities, but they work very well together, and everything. And I mean, I feel like they add a lot to the movie. They don't take away from Lee, Bruce Lee character. They don't take away from him at all. They're there to support and kind of flesh things out to a degree. All right, let's talk about some things that are beneath the action of this movie. So, a few topics I want to kind of go through real quick. So, like, let's talk about the discipline of Lee, for the most part, versus the ego of other characters like O'Hara and Han. Well, Han. Even Roper to a degree has an ego. Williams has an ego, but if you notice, like I think that's one of the things that makes this movie stand out the way it does, is because with everything that's going on, Lee pretty much keeps the discipline, and keeps his emotions in check, whereas other characters kind of let loose and, for better or for worse, let their ego get the better of them, in quite a few moments in the movie. And I always think that is very interesting and something that like a message is trying to be told there, and everything. Which I like the fact that with everything that's going on, pretty much Bruce Lee pretty much keeps his ego in check for the most part. I mean, the only time he really, like I say, somewhat loses it is, like I said earlier, in the fight with O'Hara, or even when he's fighting Han in the mirror room and everything, when he beats the holy hell out of him. Like I said, when he kicks him with that swift kick, I mean, clearly it's a dummy, but he kicks the hell out of him and kicks him like damn near across the room and everything. But even then, he's still in control of his emotions and his, he keeps his discipline of his, of his philosophy that he carries and everything. And then also too, this movie, the whole thing about like control. Han wants to control everything, and it is funny. Like with this tournament, he sits, up in his chair, high above everyone, which in a way alludes to him being in control, because they're on his island and everything like that. But then when things start to unravel, and like I say, the fact that, you know I always forget the spy lady name, but she, releases like the captives and everything like that. And then when chaos ensues, and you see like pretty much Han is losing control, and he is like, he doesn't really know how to deal with that, and everything. Also, Williams loses it when he's fighting Han and realize, oh shoot, this dude is not what I thought he was. Where he, Williams is kind of going through it with Han. Roper, I mean, everything with him is kind of chaos if you think about it. And the fact that he actually uses his, chaotic energy to a degree to beat Bolo, because like I say, even though he's like a little brawler or whatever, but he beats freaking Bolo, which is hilarious in a way when you think about it. Another thing in this movie too is we get, honor. Like I say, with Lee character, it's all about the honor. The way he carries himself. He carries himself with honor, and everything. And everything he does is with honor, basically. But then the whole corruption of everything that's going on Han's Island, and how he's trying to navigate all of that. I thought it was something, like I say, just little themes that we get underneath uh the surface of the movie. And then of course, the I like each character has a unique identity. Like Bruce Lee character, he carries himself with honor. He basically like has a code in a way. Roper, he's like I go where the wind blows almost kind of deal and everything. And he has this bravado about him. Williams is, I want to say Williams to a degree is like he could go either way, as far as like if he took things a little bit more seriously, he could carry that same discipline and honor that Bruce Lee carries. But also too, if he really wanted to, get down with what Roper had going on, he and in a way he did get down a little bit more with what Roper had going on. And I think that kind of is what cost him his life, in a sense, in the movie, and everything like that. So yeah, it's very interesting. Like this movie has these undertones and themes throughout, and like I said, if you really pay attention to the movie like that, you kind of see it. And I always felt like there's some message, within the movie and everything like that. So I do have a few side topics to talk about, and everything. So the first side topic I want to throw in here is about Bruce Lee's influence on modern action. Now, we don't really get like mainstream martial art action films like we used to. Those have kind of gone down the road, I should say, or kind of dropped down some levels. I mean, you still get that like with certain shows or even movies that pop up in streaming, but as far as like mainstream action films. We've gone away from that. It's more become more of um gun action play. I would say like the John Wick films, which ironically enough, they do pay a lot of homage to Bruce Lee films. Um and everything like that. So I mean, I would say that like that's like the closest we get to what his influence is, especially on a grander scale. But we really don't get it like how it used to be. I mean, after Bruce Lee, they were always trying to look for the next Bruce Lee. And, you had Jet Li, you had Jackie Chan. We even thought, his son Brandon Lee was going to be the next Bruce Lee. And unfortunately, in more ways than one, he was the next Bruce Lee because just like how this film, you know, propelled Bruce Lee to higher heights, and even more so because he died, around the time that the film came out. Same thing that happened with Brandon Lee with The Crow and everything. But it's like, damn, they did not get to live to actually witness the impact that these films had. Like for people back in the 70s, the impact that Enter the Dragon had on the genre. Bruce Lee did not get to witness that, just like Brandon Lee did not get to live to see the impact that still in both films still, carries on a legacy. But Brandon Lee, he didn't get to, reap the benefits of it either. With The Crow and how beloved that film is, similar to how beloved Enter the Dragon is, and everything. But we do still get glimpses of Bruce Lee's style DNA in certain action films. Like I said, I mean, probably like I said, the biggest one would have to be, um, at least in recent, is the John Wick films. Even the Matrix, ironically, both starring Keanu Reeves, pays a little homage to Bruce Lee as well. But like I said, you don't really get to see it as much as you used to of years ago, and it's kind of unfortunate that we're getting away from that, and we haven't had an action star like Bruce Lee since, relatively, and everything. And like I say, now we have more like, yeah, because it's kind of funny how we went from these type of action films to the 80s action, with Stallone and Schwarzenegger, Bruce Willis, John Claude Van Damme, even Steven Seagal. You had all those type of guys come along, and then unfortunately, by the time we get to the tail end of the 90s, they're kind of fizzling out. We can throw Wesley Snipes in there as well. Um, they're kind of fizzling out, and then we get more of like, I like to say, the middle age old man action. Like with the Takens, the Equalizers, and then Jason Statham, he kind of turned into freaking Charles Bronson with his action films and everything like that. But we really don't get the same type of action star, especially martial art action stars. We haven't had one of those in a long time. We thought Tony Jaa was going to be the next man up, but for reasons it didn't go that way. And Jackie Chan and Jet Li pretty much aged out. But we haven't had anyone really in the mainstream to carry on, this type of legacy, which is very unfortunate, really. I know I kind of mentioned a little bit about like the John Wick films, and of course you had the action movies come along with the gun. Instead of swords, it become like gun fu, in a way. Yes, John Wick pretty much is the reasoning for a lot of that here recent. I mean, John Wick, Nobody, movies like that. We get a lot of that type of thing going on. But when was the last time we really had like a mainstream martial arts action film, and that made things feel a little bit more personal? Um, even the Raid is gunplay, and everything. It's not, just straight up. karate fighting or martial arts fighting and everything like that. Is dealing more with the gun fu and everything. So we really don't get that as much. I mean, we do have glimpses here and there of like the physical storytelling, but it's more with guns, not necessarily with just straight up fighting. And in a way, it's become more spectacle. So it was like, well, which one do you prefer? Me, I feel like if it's good, it's good. If it's not, it's not. Whether it's the physical storytelling or if it's spectacle in a way. If it's something that entertains me, I will like it either way. But I know some people have their own preference to it and everything like that. So, like, and then moving on to like what I mean, as far as this movie coming out in 1973, 53 years ago at this point. Um, Granted, there are some things that feel a little dated. Some of the dialogue because it was a product of its time. Um, I don't think the pacing is necessarily a issue because, like I say, the movie it kind of goes fairly quickly at an hour, like a little over an hour and a half. It goes by fairly quickly, so I wouldn't say the pacing is the issue. But I mean, yeah, some of the dialogue is, like I say, a little dated, but it's a product of the time of the '70s. Mr. Hand, I won't leave your island, man. You like straight out of a comic book, things like that and everything. And some of the supporting characters, we don't get enough of their backstory. We just get enough. Like with O'Hara, we get that flashback, but we already know he ain't no good. But we need that flashback to get to the point where when him and Lee have the fight, we know there's a personal vendetta from Bruce Lee's character point of view. I don't think we necessarily get that without that flashback to him and his goons, basically getting into it with his sister, and then she commits suicide, but in a way, he still is the cause of her death, and everything. So is yeah, like I said, it's kind of. And then Bolo, he just a big brute. We don't get too much about him or whatever. And I think even to a degree, Williams and Roper kind of get shortchanged. I mean, we do know that Roper, is basically he's like the Johnny Cage of his era, but he's not an action, movie star or anything. But I think he has decent off money, but he does have that, gambling problem that he has, and he just kind of he's a scammer to a degree and everything. Yeah, so like I say, some of the supporting characters I do feel like as far as their backstories and necessarily motivations for what's going on does kind of get shortchanged here. But I won't take that necessarily as a negative to the movie, especially when everything just kind of keeps moving forward. We just get the bare essentials of about these characters, and we keep it pressing on, moving forward. I do think that the action still stands up. Like I said, the fight scenes. I mean, the fact that it's doing like the broad daylight and the colors of the uniforms that everyone's wearing, it pops, it sticks out. I think it's great. And like I said, that fight scene with Bruce Lee and O'Hara is like that's one of my top favorite scenes in the movie. Just because like he hit that man so fast, and it's just like, damn, like did he even know he was hit? Like he only knew he was hit because he fell down. It's like, damn, did he really hit me? Like what the hell hit me? I don't even know what happened. Type of thing. But yeah, I do feel like a lot of the action does still stand up, and it would have been cool to see Jim Kelly do a little bit more fighting. And unfortunately, like I say, he ends up getting taken out by a freaking hand, and everything. But I would say that Enter the Dragon is one of those movies that if you are someone who isn't really, really big into action movies, especially action movies like this, because like I said, it's a simple movie, and that's not saying it, in a bad way, but it is I would say if you are, or if you're trying to introduce someone into more action movies, Enter the Dragon is definitely a good movie to start with to a degree. It could influence you to like, hey, I want to check out more movies similar to this and everything, you know. So it's a good gateway to mainstream cinema in a way. Which I always enjoy that about this movie. It's like it's an easy watch. It's not, something like, oh, I can't follow what's going on, and definitely it's not a movie that you want to be watching, especially for the first time and you looking down at your freaking phone like a lot of people do. And then I don't know what happened. Well, if you weren't looking in your phone, you know what happened. And everything. And then also Bruce Lee's global impact. I talked about it earlier about him being, this culture, not just a cultural icon, but he was about to skyrocket into something else with this movie. I feel like where he was going to be looked at as a major action star. I mean, he was already an action star. He was already a known entity and everything. But it feels like Enter the Dragon was going to, just take him to another level. And it did. It just unfortunately, like I say, he passed away before he was able to reap the benefits of the success of this movie. And I do feel like this movie is still an essential watch. And everything. Whether you, like I say, whether you're an action fan or if you're just someone who enjoy a lot of movie, like if you're a movie lover, if you're a cinephile, if you enjoy movies and you've never seen Enter the Dragon, I do say yes, you should watch it because it's one of those movies that I won't necessarily say it shook the world to a degree, but it is definitely it kind of shook the pillars to kind of paraphrase Jack Burton from Big Trouble in Little China. It definitely shook the pillars, I feel like. And it's definitely worth a watch by anybody. So before I wrap up this episode, I do have a few questions for you guys, the listeners. And like I said, you can comment whether it's on the actual episode, wherever you're listening to the podcast at. If you're listening on YouTube, definitely comment down below. You can email me as well. Also, you can comment on the Instagram page, JMT Podcast, underneath the post for this episode and everything. However you want to get in contact with me, you definitely can. You can also email me at jmovietalk@gmail.com. And like I say, I will read your feedback, your answers to questions on the next episodes, if any comes in before I record the next episode. So, first question I have is Bruce Lee the greatest action star ever? Now, there have been a lot of action stars who've come along after him, but is he the greatest one? And I only say that because if you factor in everything, which not, I mean, his aura, his physical style, his influence, and everything like that. So I definitely factor him into it, factor all of that into it and everything. Now, if however you want to work it in there, do you feel that he's the greatest action star ever? Like I say, let me know in the comments, and I just let everybody know how you can find me and everything, and how you want to comment. Like I say, on the episodes themselves, email, or on the YouTube if you're listening on YouTube. The next question I have is: do you prefer martial arts action or modern gun-based action? Like, are you more of a traditionalist, fight scene type of action fan, or do you like the gun fu as it's been dubbed in recent years? And everything. Me, like I say, I like a happy blend of both. I can sit down and watch a movie like this and enjoy it, or I can sit down and watch something like Nobody or The Raids and and everything like that. I can sit and watch that and enjoy it as well. Like I say, as long as it's good, it's good. But if you have to pick one, which one do you enjoy more? Me personally, I feel like I enjoy this just a little bit more than the gunplay, even though I do like the gunplay stuff and everything. So, and the last question I have is, what's your favorite Bruce Lee moment? Now, that don't necessarily have to be from Enter the Dragon. It can be from another movie of his. It can be from um, Green Hornet, whatever. It can be from anything, any moment of his. I will stick it to a scene from this movie. And it's when he's being briefed about hand and everything like that. And when he's like, you know what, just give me a gun, I can go and I can shoot him, bang, and that's it. It's like, no guns, Mr. Lee. He just kind of gives that, man, whatever. Which I found out actually that was his real reaction, because that was something that he discussed with the director, and that's kind of basically what the director said. So his reaction to that is not him in character, but like the real life Bruce Lee's reaction to it, which makes that even more funny to me, and everything. So I want to thank everybody for listening to this episode. I've enjoyed talking about Enter the Dragon, enjoyed going back and watching it for this episode. It's good to be back behind the microphone talking about things that I love, which of course is movies. So yeah, May Action is going to be a fun month, and hopefully everyone enjoys what I have coming down the pipe for this month. I will let everybody know the next episode, which is episode 370, I will be talking about a little movie from 1995 called Bad Boys, starring Will Smith and Martin Lawrence. Yes, I will be doing Bad Boys. This is a movie that I've been wanting to do on the podcast for a long time, and I'm finally getting around to doing it. I'm going to have fun talking about that movie, and hopefully you guys enjoy listening to me talking about that movie. If you have any thoughts and comments about Bad Boys, definitely hit me up and let me know. And like I say, I will talk about it on the episode, and everything. So I definitely look forward to talking about Bad Boys. I haven't watched that movie from beginning to end in a long time. I think I actually remember Bad Boys 2 a little bit more than I actually remember Bad Boys. So there's some stuff from Bad Boys I might be, unlocking, old memories that I haven't tapped into for a very long time. So yeah, that will be episode 370. Of course, you can follow me all over social medias, whether it is on Threads, which of course is the J Giles, on Instagram, the podcast, for Instagram, JMT Podcast. Of course, you can listen to all the episodes, a part of the TV Zone Podcast Network. Wherever you listen to your podcast at, just type in TV Zone Podcast Network, you'll find it. Or you can go to the website, www.tvzonepodcastnetwork.com. Or if you want to just strictly hear the movie talk episodes, you can definitely check me out over on YouTube at J Movie Talk as well. I'm going to have some more episodes popping up over there. Might be uploading some older episodes as well over there and everything like that, just to kind of, bring older episodes back to the spotlight, to the forefront, I should say. That's henceforth why I did the throwback episode of Mortal Kombat, which should be up by the time this episode is uploaded. It should be up over on YouTube as well. Again, thank you guys for listening to this episode. I will be back for episode 370 as I talk about Bad Boys. Until next time, peace.